What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Steven Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt practice report. We're getting ready for game day against Wake Forest. Week 8 is pulling closer and closer. A rematch of the 2021 ACC championship game, a game that Pitt won. I remember I was a senior at Pitt. It was one of the better days my college career. People were burning couches on my street, got to party in the streets on Forbes and Fifth. After the game, it was a great time, but this game is going to look very, very different from what that 2021 game was on both sides, really. Just tons of experience gone from either side. We're going to focus on the Pitt perspective of it, and that's kind of where we're going to start. We're going to keep with the theme of the week, which has been young guys. The theme of the year, it's starting to feel like it is because while the Panthers have started a youth movement, there is going to be even more on the way. Those wheels are going to keep churning as we move into Wake Forest week. And we know that because Pat Narduzzi pretty explicitly said that to us this week. So we'll get right into it. I mean, like I said, Pitt hasn't been afraid to mix their young guys in this year. I thought at the beginning of the year that Pitt was actually going to lean on its experience, from Phil Dracovic to Bub Means and Kanate Mumfield and two super senior defensive tackles, three senior corners, on and on and on. You can go up and down this team. And one of the big things that people counted on was a little bit of a repeat of last year, which is that experience was going to help them account for a lot of the losses, to the NFL draft and to the transfer portal and so on. But I thought that experience and those older dudes would really be the driving force behind whatever success the Panthers had this year. But very little has played out the way that I thought it would this season, and that includes the fact that the young guys have been the story of this season, not the older guys. I mean, it starts with Christian Veyer at quarterback, but up and down the roster, Pitt is integrating more freshmen and sophomores, put simply guys who have 2 or 3 years left of eligibility into the roster. You think about Kenny Johnson, Kyle Lewis, even Nakai Johnson a little bit here and there, PJ O'Brien, Donovan McMillan, John Von McIntyre, who else along the offensive line? BJ Williams, Terrence Moore, Ryan Baer, Branson Taylor. We can keep going. I mean, why am I blank? Braylon Lovelace, yeah, linebacker too. You go up and down this roster, and there are guys who are going to be here for a while that are beginning to make an impact, and more are on the way, especially at linebacker. And that's a position that Pat Narduzzi, in our final conversation with him before they head down to Wake Forest, really highlighted to us. It's that you can expect to see a couple of freshmen, Rasheem Biles and Jordan Bass, get added to the rotation a little bit more this week as Pitt kind of takes a peek towards the future. Biles, you'll know him as someone who made a bunch of splash plays on special teams, blocked a couple of punts against North Carolina and West Virginia. Bass has been a little bit quieter, got some reps on the defensive side of the ball. Last week, just about 4 reps, but he's also going to see an increased workload. And I think this is just, a further signal of something that we've already talked about, which is just that Pitt has a lot of talent, for as much as they have struggled this year, but that talent is a little green. It's a little young, and Pitt at this point in their season is still trying to strike a delicate balance between competing in 2023 and building for 2024. So that kind of brings me to my next topic, which is that I think it's okay to have expectations for this game against Wake Forest. I think the fan base as a whole kind of has a warm and fuzzy feeling about coming off of that Louisville win. It feels like this team has found answers in a lot of places. They turned some things around, and I kind of buy into that. Pitt has, in this specific moment, and I'll get to that in a second, but Pitt has momentum while Wake is spiraling a little bit. Wake has lost 3 in a row. They're piecing together a wonky situation at quarterback. And meanwhile, Pitt heads in a completely different direction, having just knocked off a top 15 opponent behind a young quarterback making his first start that they really believe in because he played pretty well in his first start. I understand the numbers weren't super gaudy, but he took care of the ball. He made some nice throws. He was able to chuck it deep and connect on some deep balls that we thought were going to come with the old starter. And he led him to a win. Like that's a big deal. I mean, a win against top 15 opponent kind of speaks for itself, no matter, what the exact numbers or the how of that kind of unfolds. You win that game, that's really, really significant, especially when you're facing a team that has lost 3 in a row to much worse opponents. You think about Wake's 3 like, Wake started 3-0, and now they're 3-3. They are headed in the complete opposite direction while dealing with some injuries at quarterback. There are a lot of holes, and Pitt should be able to really take advantage of this. That's not a guarantee that Pitt will win. They're nowhere near a perfect team right now, but they have an arrow pointed up, and it's not just because of the offense, which showed some promise from receiving cores, the quarterback play, offensive line. All of those seem to be getting better, but the defense made some big strides against Louisville too. The tackling was better. Pressure on the quarterback was effective, it felt like, for the first time this season, and they created turnovers while pitching a second half shutout against, again, a far better team than Wake Forest is. And you can call it lightning in a bottle, but I don't know. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a pattern start to emerge. I think Pitt is going to at least get this one. These are all real reasons to have confidence in this Pitt team, and I'd say I'd savor this moment. I'd savor these 2 weeks because after Wake, the schedule gets pretty brutal, when you think about Notre Dame and Florida State, but even a road trip to Syracuse, Duke at the end of the year. There's only one game that you feel like Pitt is gonna, be favored in for the rest of the home stretch, and that's against Boston College at home on a Thursday, on a short week, on a Thursday night. So, I would again say just savor this moment. I expect Pitt to be at the very least competitive. That would honestly be a little concerning, but I think they should win this game. I think they're just a team, like I said, with the arrow pointed up at this moment, while Wake has their arrow pointed down. So that warm fuzzy feeling feels good right now, but I'm almost certain it's not going to last. I'd love to be wrong, but I'd say we probably get another week of this, and I think it's okay to look at what Pitt did last week and feel pretty comfortable that they will be able to replicate it against Wake Forest. Got one more thing to talk about, and it's something that's been on my mind a little bit this week. It I feel like flew under the radar a little bit. That's partly on the media. We saw this on Monday. We forgot to ask Narduzzi about it, or it just kind of got slipped through the cracks on Monday when we got our first crack at him. But Nate Yarnell moving up to second string, Phil Dracovic moving down to third string on the depth chart in an official capacity. You kind of got the feeling that this was a move that they decided on in practice. And I mean that, like, not physically literally in practice, but functionally, the Panthers had decided to make Phil Dracovic their third stringer and Nate Yarnell their backup last week. I remember being on the field for prior to the Louisville game. Christian Vayer's taking snaps from Terrence Moore. Nate Yarnell is taking snaps from BJ Williams, who, piecing together the context, seemed to be the backup center with Jake Cradle out. We heard from Dave Borley that every guard learns how to snap. So that was kind of my assumption, especially because then you look to Yarnell's left, and it's Phil Dracovic taking snaps from Trey Anderson, who I believe has played exclusively special teams during his time at Pitt. That should tell you a little bit of something. But, uh, you know, Pat Narduzzi put this in front of our faces. He moves Dracovic down to third string, puts that in writing. And then when asked about it on Thursday, he kind of gives a nothing answer. Just kind of said, Yarnell had been working in practice, playing well. Coaching staff just thought it was the best move. This isn't the biggest news of the week, and functionally, it's really not that important at all. But that's part of why I really don't get why, Narduzzi wouldn't give us a little bit more to grab onto and just say, I don't know, because, say a little bit more about how this is maybe it is just about, Nate playing better than Phil in practice. Maybe that's possible. Maybe it's about Phil playing tight end a little bit more seriously. Maybe something that Narduzzi doesn't necessarily want to talk about right now. But it could also be about looking towards the future a little bit, which is also something I think that Narduzzi doesn't necessarily want to admit right now, that this team is. I definitely wouldn't say punting on this year. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's true. I think they are just, like I said earlier, like trying to strike a balance between looking towards 2024 while staying competitive in 2023. And, a backup quarterback move doesn't necessarily alter your plans for 2023 for the immediate future, but I think it sends a pretty clear signal to everyone who's observing this team, to your players on the team, that there's a little bit of a different focus in the second half. And that's in combination with all of the other moves that we have just talked about, that we talked about at the top of the show, is that, or at the top of the episode, is that there is a lot of young talent and they are trying to get them up to speed so that they can both finish strong. That's certainly a goal, but I venture to say that the bigger priority is thinking about 2024 and what they'll be able to do with this talent next year. Um, you know, I think I think there was a way to handle this if you I don't know. This just wasn't how I expected Pat Narduzzi to handle this. I think Yarnell could have been the backup in practice in functionality, but you didn't have to maybe make it this public of a move if you didn't have a certain message that you wanted to tell, you know? And I think it's especially weird just that Narduzzi didn't, want to give a very complete answer about it. And I say that not to complain, like the depth chart lies to us all the time. That's not this is not me complaining about that. It's just kind of acknowledging the reality of the scenario and acknowledging that there is a certain way that college football coaches communicate with the media. They only tell us something when they want to tell us something. It's very rare that you catch them telling you something that they are not comfortable telling you. And this was him telling us something that he was not comfortable with. He kind of wanted to say it tacitly, and so it's a little weird. But it was, and like I said, this is not the biggest news of the week, but it is a pretty clear statement that affirms what, like I said, the theme of the week has been, and that is that the children are the future. So with that, I'm going to head out of here. Thanks so much for tuning into another Inside Pitt Practice Report. Make sure to stay tuned with us through the weekend and through the end of the week for all your coverage of Pitt at Wake Forest. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/at Inside the Panthers, and like this video, and then follow all of our reporting at InsideThePanthers.com. It's great to talk to you all. And until next time, I'll see you.